Hello, Palladium fans. We're back here with Sean Roberson to talk about his career and how he ended up where he's at Palladium Books. Now, when we left off, Sean, we were talking about the American apocalypse for Savage Rifts. We were talking about Demon Seas, Atlantis and the Demon Seas that you did, but you still worked on the South America book, and you worked on, I have it right here, Terror on the Dark Frontier, which, to get a Rifts box set adventure, teenage JM was just out of his mind when I got it, and then I read it and I loved it. So let's talk about those, and then maybe like anything else that you've done in the industry, because I know most of us are just like, and I've only worked on this. Like right. I've worked on this and this and this and this and this. So yeah, let's finish up your time at Pinnacle and kind of talk about what else you've worked on.
Yeah. So at Pinnacle, I as I said, we talked about. It's funny. I realized as we're talking about this, I left out some things that I worked on. So when we did the American Armageddon Kickstarter, it had Arcana and Mysticism, Blood and Banes, and Empires of Humanity. Mm-hmm. And Empires of Humanity, I was the primary writer on it. There was some previous writing, mostly by Sean Fannin, that I inherited, but it was mostly just about some basics about the coalition that I expanded out. Then the Birchers worked on Arcana, Mysticism, and Blood and Banes. When as part of the campaign, I've got the books here, so let me actually illustrate what we're talking about real quick so that people understand what's going on and can I'm more visual personally. So everybody's familiar with Savage Worlds. And so this was my first book, Empires. Mm-hmm. I love that cover. We also used it as the art for the American Armageddon Kickstarter campaign.
Yep.
And then this is Arcana and Mysticism,
which has the Nixla on the cover. I ran that in Plot Point campaign out of the back.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then Blood and Banes has vampires. The main campaign's about vampires. Both of them, what you see on the cover is part of those two books is part of the Plot Point campaign. And so they're fantastic books. Blood and Banes is more dark. It's got the full shifter OCC, not OCC, but iconic framework written up that I wrote. It's got the ethical necromancer, hero vampire, and characters like that are a little darker. And then Arcana and Mysticism has a lot of your Dweemer and other Federation of Magic type magic users.
Escape.
Yes, Skyscape, right? Psy Warriors and all that kind of jazz, Druids. So that's just so people understand how those are kind of broken down. But they're all designed to cover the three books together are designed to cover basically most of what you're going to find, the cool stuff in North America in Rifts, which is the center of the setting, although there's tons of fantastic, dozens of fantastic world books. So when we did the campaign, I talked about last time, Shane had asked me to do a second edition of the core rules and an overhaul. So I overhauled the Tomorrow Legion Player's Guide heavily and had a lot of great updates. I mean, a lot of core things like damage changed and the way that ley lines and rituals, I added rituals and meditations and a lot of other new concepts to the game. And then that also included a big editing pass on Savage Foes of North America and the Game Master's Handbook. Yeah. And the GM's Handbook, I added a section called High Octane Horror because that's one of the things that we got kind of feedback was that Game Masters have a hard time. You have all these really powerful heroes. And so some game masters like, how do I challenge them? And how do I bring the horror aspect into that? Yeah. And a lot of it clarified, what do I do about a glitter boy? How do I handle that in combat? And, so a lot of really core GM questions. And then the other book that we brought out was a new title.
The Field Manual.
The Tomorrow Legion Field Manual. And so it has about I've remember about 30 or 40 pages, 50 pages of new material. And I wrote that. And then it has including rules for long distance travel and in the world of rifts, so travel through wilderness and things like that to help game masters
Yeah.
create a feel of the dangerous wilderness full of monsters. And then it has a lot of almost virtually all of the adventure material from the original launch of the game, updated, and campaigns updated to the new edition of rules. But with some balancing and some polish by me. So really proud of that. I primarily was working on that and the core book updates. We were doing the editing process on this, and then Simon Lucas did the heaviest editing and primary editing on Arcane and Mysticism, Blood and Banes, and Empires of Humanity. Because I
love Simon.
He's great. He's
a great guy.
I did an interview on my old YouTube channel. He's just a workhorse and a great guy. And, he had the experience necessary to do that high level work on those books. So, so anyways, we did that. And then, and it was a big success. And Shane, shortly after that, Shane made me the line editor.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was after I came out with, I wrote cover to cover Atlantis and the Demon Seas, which Kevin says he thought was the most Palladium out of all the Savage Rifts books. He really enjoyed it. So that was a high compliment.
That's got to feel good.
It does feel good.
Yeah.
And after that, that went well. We had about almost exactly as many backers as the American editing campaign, which usually source books don't do that well. Right. So we were really, really happy about that. And they made me the line editor, which means above the manager, I can edit anything anyone writes for the entire product line. It's my call, which was kind of cool when Jody Black explained that to me and what that meant. Because to me, coming from my background, I was like, manager sounds bigger than editor.
Yeah.
No. You've got like carte blanche on this line. Yeah. And I loved participating in the Kickstarters and creating the Kickstarters and running the Kickstarters. We have wonderful fans. And so then one of the requests was, hey, can we put together a team of writers to help you produce more? We can produce more material more quickly. And so I brought in Johnny Racha, PK Levine, Patrick Young. Came a little later, and then and Aaron Burkett and John Stevens. They're all writers that had been working on the books with me, or they'd all done adventure material before that's been released by Pinnacle. But yeah, they came in, and so I worked with primarily John Stevens. So to bring up Terror on the Dark Frontier, which I am very proud of, is the first Rifts adventure box set.
Yeah.
And I did a lot of research trying to figure out, well, gee, how do we do this? And how do you structure it? And at first it was going to be just a small adventure series. And I reached out and contacted, I reached out to fans online and said, hey, if anyone is Native American, would you please contact me? I'd like you to review some material, because we had an adventure that John Stevens had written, and we wanted to make sure that we had someone that was much more knowledgeable about the culture, take a read through it and tell us what they thought. And we actually had a grandmother come, and a Native American grandmother call us, and she gave us so much feedback and talked to us about their culture and in that region, and all gift based. And so we took that feedback and integrated it into it, and it just made the whole plot line way more compelling. So we added other adventures after, not dealing with the native tribes directly, but in the region. And so it was really interesting to see that it kind of snowballed into this really cool campaign. I'd written this adventure that is basically acted as the climax. But when I had originally written it, it didn't have a great lead in. And so I realized we need to put this at the end of a campaign because that needs to. And so then John Stevens and I worked to integrate that all into a really cool narrative arc. And he's a fantastic writer. He did the bulk of the writing, but we also had Ross Watson. I asked Ross Watson to come in and do sections. Aaron Burkett and John Stevens, and I believe Ross, and I could be forgetting a writer, also did. So basically, we have one book that's your plot point campaign, which is more of a linear story. As anyone who's familiar with running adventure campaigns, they usually say this happens, this happens, that happens. But we also have a separate book that's just as you wander around as part of the campaign or not, or in between the different adventures in the campaign, you can go to different sites. Mm-hmm. They have associated adventure material and characters and adventures. So I'm really happy with how it turned out. There was also character options and beautiful maps and art. And so I think that, from what I understand, Frank Studio 2 said that it's doing fantastic. So I'm happy to see that we got that done. And I'd like to bring it. We're talking about bringing it to Palladium, releasing a Palladium version.
Oh, that would be awesome. So, like, my favorite Deadlands adventure is
Horror at Headstone Hill,
or at Headstone Hill. Thank you. I've run it 3 times. I think it's just this perfect combination of sandbox and like a plot thread running through.
Yes, and so
after that is Terror on the Dark Frontier. I haven't had a chance to run it yet, but it's the same thing, right? You have the main thread that's going through, but then you have this massive Rift-sized sandbox to play in.
Right, and so and it really, for fans of New West and Spirit West. Mm-hmm. From Rifts, it really does a deep dive on the northern Texas, Oklahoma region, what's going on. And it's on the coalition frontier, which is, of course, Canada. It's all really interesting, the things that are interacting there. And it answers some questions that they talk about in Spirit West of there's this sickness that's growing into the land. And so in Terror on the Dark Frontier, you get to go in and find out, what is it? What is the problem? There's all kinds of cool stuff. Monsters, worm wraiths. I mean, it's so Rifts, New West, Spirit West.
One of the things I love about the Savage Rifts line that you guys did is it never felt to me like you were trying to one-up Palladium or rewrite Palladium's core lore. What you would do is you would like pry open a space that had been established and said, now let me fill this in and like look at how cool it is here.
And I do that with Kevin.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things that Kevin and I have tried to emphasize is, I don't know if some people might think it's written in a vacuum. It's not. I would, for instance, for South America, I went to Kevin with, I think, like a 10-page doc with quotes from different parts of South America 1 and 2. But we're updating the timeline from 102 PA to 109 PA. And a lot of times, if you go through the books, it says, this is probably going to happen next. This event's going to happen, right? And so I went to Kevin and said, here's what is already kind of set up in the lore. Here's some extra things that I want to do. And I had a suggestion from Ross Watson. I had a suggestion from PK, we had some other people involved. And so that was part of how, for instance, just to give people an idea, how the South America book came about. So I didn't do primary writing on anything but like the Game Master section. But I edited all of the icon frameworks. I edited all of the edges. And the rest of it was all laid out from direct conversations and communications between me and Kevin. And so it is riffs, it is lore, and Palladium will eventually catch up when we revisit some of these things.
Yeah.
Or we do new revised editions potentially of books like South America or some of the Europe books and stuff like that. So, and the same goes for to jump ahead a little bit. Of course, I ended up joining Palladium Books.
What?
And now Aaron Burkett is the line manager for Savage Rifts, but he does the same thing. He came to us with a list of what he wanted to do. We had a meeting. We talked about it. I went through the document with him before, and then we had this meeting, and me and him and Kevin went through every single item, and then he and the writers went to do their work. Awesome. Right. And so there's some cool stuff there. And there's some cool stuff that I had fun with too. Like you're talking about prying open the stuff. I really enjoyed the Megaversal Legion. So their lore expanded in the where is it? I got it here somewhere. So the next book that came out, and this is after I had actually joined Palladium, but I was heavily involved with editing still, was
Land of 10,000 or 1,000 Islands. Yeah. That book is fantastic.
And so you can find out a lot about expanded lore about the Megaversal Legion and what happened to them, and that they are initially were comprised of the lost Roman legions.
Yep, I loved that. I was just going to bring that up.
Yeah, no, it's fun, and that's actually a friend of mine who's credited in the book is the one that came up with that idea. So we wanted to make sure, though, that this then continues, and that thread is picked up with the return of the Romans in Neo-Rome in the Europa book, which is done in developments at the printers right now. If I know, I could be wrong. I don't keep track of Pinnacle. I have a hard time keeping track of everything we're doing at Palladium now. But I was heavily involved with that faction, very especially. Cool. That book, we did a lot of that because we're continuing the same process. It's mostly the same writers. But now instead of being the license, the lead, contractor as the licensee side, I'm shepherding it through the same way from the licensor side. But not to jump. Sorry to jump ahead a little bit. But
no.
Yeah.
How did that transition occur? Because it's
Well, and I wrote, and it's funny because I did write some stuff for Sigil Entertainment. I wrote some stuff for Torg Eternity.
Yeah.
John Watson, who I'm friends with, reached out and asked me to work on that. So I wrote an adventure that is in the what is it called?
The Pan Pacifica book.
The Pan Pacifica book, right?
My wife was the line editor.
Right. Yeah.
For Torg Eternity, which is why she was like, I know that name.
Yeah. And I wrote, because a lot of people, I mean, we mentioned this yesterday. So I was a missionary in Taiwan speaking Mandarin Chinese. And then in the Air Force, I was a Chinese analyst. So I have an associate's degree, a small degree in Chinese language and culture and history. And I've lived over in Taiwan for a number of years. So I wrote an adventure that deals with the original Emperor of China, Qin Shi Huang, and his, creepy potential return and destruction of all life on Earth. But no, it was great to stretch, and write some stuff for that cosm. And then the other thing that I wrote on, and it hasn't been published yet, I don't think, but it's 3 big adventures that I wrote for Warhammer Wrath and Glory, or role-playing Wrath and Glory. And my proudest moment of that was just that my adventure outlines were accepted without any changes by Games Workshop. And then when I wrote 3, each was 25,000 words, I wrote 75,000 words, and Games Workshop was like, good to go.
Which
was huge.
Which is a rarity if you are inside the industry and understand how that works.
Yeah, it's not common. It's
not common at all.
I was able to put on my 40K hat because I used to be such a 40K nut. As we've talked about, I'm a little competitive. Yeah. I get into competitive gaming. But no, it was a lot of fun to write. And I had decided that what I wanted to do was keep being the line editor for Savage Rifts for as long as I could. Mm-hmm. But I wanted to start my own company, my own imprint. I had basically given away to the poor or sold everything I owned during the pandemic, and was like, I want to go somewhere else. You get stuck in for a while and you realize I really want to travel and do other things.
100%.
Especially as a writer with Pinnacle, you could be anywhere. They don't
work anywhere. Yeah.
Location like Palladium does. So Kevin, we'd gotten to be pretty good friends, and we were talking a lot. I was doing interviews with him, And what he was allowing us to do with the license for Savage Rifts was expanding. It was because of the relationship, and he saw consistent high quality product coming
Yeah,
out.
yeah.
That's when he let us do the virtual tabletop support for
Mhm.
Savage Rifts. That's when he let us do the pawns. I art
Yeah.
directed those as well.
God, I
Um,
love those.
my favorite is the
Is
spider
it the
walker. I'm
Spider
sorry.
Skull Walker, right? Like that thing's fantastic. If you guys haven't seen this, you need to purchase this pawn.
So these pawns are cut out, and they're all sized correctly. That's the size of a normal one. We got this tall, but this spider skull walker, I had the idea and sketched it out and showed it to the team and Simon Lucas, and we're like, do you think this would work? And Simon was like, I don't know, but we can try it. And it's pretty good.
It's so good. Yeah.
I was so glad that you never know what's going to happen. Sometimes you work on stuff and it comes out and you're like, but most of the time we've been able to save it and my crazy ideas. So, no, I worked real hard on that and we got to do that. We got to do all kinds of stuff that wasn't in the original license for Rifts for Savage Worlds. And so I'm really proud of that. And like I said, I worked on the vehicle guide as well as, if you can see, I have a lot of notes and stuff on my science fiction companion for the work that I did on
Yeah.
which I'm very proud of, even though I'm one of many people, very
Oh,
talented
yeah.
people on the new sci-fi companion. The new companion books are fantastic, by the way.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Anyone that enjoys Savage Worlds, or if you just want some cool advice on how to run different types of games, a lot of it could be system agnostic. They're just cool books with great art and ideas. But anyways, that's yeah. So I was doing my thing, and one day I'm talking to Kevin because I was finalizing my plans to move overseas, save some money, bootstrap my company. Because I can do everything. I can do the writing, the design,
Yeah.
the layout, the art direction. I just can't. I don't paint the pretty pictures. And Kevin said, "Well, Sean, I really hate to throw a monkey wrench in your plan, but what about joining me at Palladium as my 50-50 business partner?" And I was dumbstruck. I did not
Yeah.
expect that. And I couldn't sleep for almost 3 days. And it was a good 2.5 days before I could sleep. And I said, yes, but let me talk to people. And he's like, no, you need to think about this. And so I called my mom and my best friend from the Air Force and, all my buddies and gaming buddies. And I was like, and they're like, are you sure? He just said he wanted to you to be his 50-50 business partner and own half the company. That doesn't, we don't understand. Maybe there's some miscommunication. And so I called him back the next day. I'm like, do you just want me to help manage things and run things until you want to sell the company or something? And he's like, no, I wouldn't make you my 50-50 business partner right off the bat, but a couple of years down the road, once you've proven yourself, he said, but yeah, I want you to help me revitalize the company because I didn't know. I'd never been to the Palladium offices before because it's just so far away from where I grew up. Yeah. And there was a lot of processes that needed updating, and I've been since I got here. But it was one of those things where he was like, no, I know you're going to put in the sweat equity to help me bring Palladium up. And he said the other thing is for him is really important is he doesn't want to sell Palladium and his IPs and his stories to someone else because most people don't have the respect for his stories. And so for him, the biggest deal was he saw I was just like deathly loyal to as you said earlier, and that's the highest compliment I can get working on Rifts for Savage Worlds is it's hyper loyal to the original Rifts material. I mean, I book and page, right?
Yeah.
And even so much so that sometimes some information will surprise some readers sometimes. But the research is done. And so it's one of these things where you, instead of just replacing it, or just building on top, you interleave these new bits of narrative and build it all together. And I think that makes the stronger product that resonates with fans, right? It's cool. It's cooler story when it all meshes and structures well together.
100%.
But that's kind of how I got that opportunity that I didn't really expect. I told Kevin, I after he asked me, I said, I'd always wanted to say, oh man, I'd love to buy riffs or something from you. I was like, but where am I going to have the money to say I want to buy
Yeah.
riffs? I felt like that was kind of presumptuous. I hadn't even written a Palladium riffs book yet.
Yeah.
And we finally met. We had met in person in 2019 at Gen Con. And so after that is when our friendship really started growing. It wasn't just communicating about art.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. And so, I moved up here and to Michigan, and we started working hard. So I don't know. Is that good? Is that
That's perfect. Like, yeah. Well, let's talk about, because you've touched on a lot of like Rifts projects in recent years. Bestiary, Rifter 85. We're going to do a video here in the upcoming weeks about Ninja Turtles and show off some of the goodness of the Ninja Turtles.
Yeah.
New book. But what I'd like to talk about is Titan Robotics. That was like a big Kickstarter for Palladium. It took. I mean, we also got the Cyberworks collection.
Yep.
Mine. Right. We got this, which brought back into production some of the great early stuff and kind of laid the foundation for Titan Robotics. And again, once again, a book that I read and I went, this is clearly built on the foundation of everything that has come before, but with like exciting new twists and, again, building off and prying open these things. Like, even down to the fact, my favorite plot point that you put in that book. Sorry guys, I'm the interviewer, so I get to tell Sean my favorite things. I love the fact that during the and my brain's going to die on me, on the Megaverse in Flames tie-in, where it's like Titan Robotics is dropping these packages of like weapons and armor and generators, or allowing you to buy them at like way heavily discounted, because they were like, I mean, we're not the good guys, but we're not who we were, and this is bad. And I loved that. It felt perfect with everything that Kevin set up in Sourcebook 1.
Oh yeah, well, it's kind of like with the mechanoids. It's an existential threat, and Hagon and Archie, they want to rule the Earth, but they want to rule the Earth and humans. They don't want humans to take over the Earth. They don't want the mechanoids to wipe out all creation. So it's odd, just like in Mechanoids, Sourcebook 2 Mechanoids.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, which I ran with my friends, the mechanoids are crazy killers. And you quickly realize, like, and Hagen has some character development that happens.
He does.
Character development that happens. And so you realize, oh, he was, and he still is, very selfish and self-absorbed and all these things. But when push comes to shove, he's actually out there for humanity, and he wants humanity to win and thrive.
He's becoming the hero that he was pretending to be.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He basically becomes an anti-hero.
Yeah.
When the conditions are right. He becomes a frenemy. And it's interesting because the first book that I wrote, Empires of Humanity, the plot point campaign deals with the Devourers, the mechanoid threat, and Archie, and the Republicans and a bunch of other states. It's actually a really fun campaign that different parts of North America, that you can run lots of adventures in between the different main plot points in the campaign. But when it comes to Palladium, we had a lot of fun. And the first thing I worked on was Rifter 85.
Mm-hmm.
And so I curated that. So I went through, normally Wayne Smith is the curator and editor on the Rifter, but this time it had been in hiatus.
Yeah.
It used to be a quarterly publication. And Kevin and I said, we really want to bring it back. It's something special, and hopefully do it once every year or two. And it's been a couple of years at this point. We need to get another one out. But with this one, I went through, and it was actually a really good opportunity because there's a lot of writers that work with Palladium, and I read their material, and I don't know them from Adam. I don't know who they are, right?
Yeah.
So for me, I was able to say very objectively, oh, this is a great article. I don't know who wrote it. and let's polish it up and get it in the Rifter. And it was a chunky 224 pages. But and we worked with Brandon Verhalen with Star Anvil to get the cover art done. So kind of foreshadowing of things to come.
Yeah,
and,
love Brandon.
And in there, I got we Kevin and I did this thing called the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses Program, which is basically a miniature MBA in the semester. Yeah. It was a full-time job basically, but it was great because we both were able to discuss and share our vision about the company and the future. Right after I arrived in Michigan. So I didn't move overseas. I just moved to Michigan, to the Detroit area, between Detroit and Ann Arbor. And then I worked on, so we had this manuscript from Matt Clements for Titan Robotics, which you can see in the Titan Robotics, if you have a copy of the Titan Robotics, what is it called? The
preview edition or the raw edition?
Raw edition, yeah, the preview edition, the raw edition. And there was a bunch of art done for it, but there was I think it was over 20 pieces that we never got the final art. So I couldn't and it was illustrations of the robots in the book. Yeah. I didn't have art for those robots, but when Stephen Cummings had done some art for the book, he was having so much fun, Kevin, he wanted to draw more Titan Robotics inspired robots in Power Level. Yeah. So Kevin said, sure, go ahead. Well, it just so happens I had about 20 extra illustrations from Stephen. Who, if you're not in the know, he moonlights with us. Normally, his day job is doing The Mandalorian and Ahsoka for Marvel Comics, and he's done stuff with DC and Image Comics. Yeah, stuff with Jim Zub. So he's fantastically talented. And so when it came to Titan Robotics, I had to and the manuscript wasn't fully done. And the other problem is from a creator's standpoint, a lot of the secret stuff was revealed earlier in the book instead of later and kind of parsed out. So I kept everything I could, but I just had to reorganize the order that it's appeared in so that you let the players in on the conspiracy. The Titan Robotics, the conspiracy that comes. And it's, as you said, it's built on Rift's Sourcebook 1 Revised, Sumerian Nation, has mechanoids in there, and so then this and some other articles in the Rifter by Josh Suemoto, as well as some stuff from like Rift Black Market, and so when I did this book, I realized, it's time to bring all that together in a way that fits the prior lore. And also we got some problems to solve with this production level of this art that we have that doesn't exactly match up this stuff. So I had to kind of reformat. If you check the raw against this, that's why some of those robots and different themes changed. But in the end, I think it ended up with a great theme, and I wrote a ton of extra material for it, and Matt Clements had done a great bang-up job on the initial manuscript, and very proud of the book that came out. It was also the first Palladium book to feature an index.
Yes.
At the back page of the book. The table of contents is based directly on all the headers throughout the book. Yeah. Which is something that's just if you know InDesign, is a little higher level thing that you can generate that page using that. Yeah. So it's a great way to do it. And the type is the layout's a little more airy. You have a little more room for it to space in between things, so it should be easier to read. I really like to do facing pages spreads, 1 page, 2 page spreads. So you'll find that there's a lot less of the information doesn't quite finish at the end of the page and it cuts off to the next page, or just weird stuff like that. So just because I'm picky about layout, but I hope it makes the book easier to use for everyone out there. But yeah, as you said, it was built on all this previous lore, and we're like, what? How are we going to make sure everybody's caught up on the lore? Because it's from 3.5 books and some Rifter submissions and all this stuff.
And 2 of those books are very early on in the Rift's production history, right? Like Sourcebook 1 and Sourcebook 2.
Yes, very early, out the gate. So, and then the other thing is these books, they only existed, they were never digitally produced. they were created using paste up boards, which we have high-res scans of. We have the originals here in the warehouse, and they've done high-res scans. So as part of the project, we remastered those books and then collected them. And so the PDFs were actually updated with the remaster material. So if you own the PDFs on drive-through, they were upgraded for free.
Yeah.
And the art is sharper. There's a lot of I fixed a lot of typos and syntax errors and things like that. And then we came out with the Cyborg collection. So we collected all of that material into one big hardcover using the old original Sourcebook 1 before it was revised, the art for it. And that people have loved that book. I thought it would be something that we would offer with the Kickstarter. And I thought the people that would be interested would get it then. And then after that, it probably won't sell much. We got to reprint it like 3 or 4 times.
That's awesome.
So that's a good problem.
That's fantastic. That's a problem you want to have.
Yeah, exactly. So, and with that too, it was the first time a Palladium book had ever been on Kickstarter. And so that was exciting. And we did, I love designing card decks and stuff like that. And so, because I love layout. And so we did a Titan Robotics poker deck, but just kind of stretching spreading our wings a little bit on what we can bring to the table for fans as opposed to just books and stuff like that. What other kind of gaming or gaming adjacent material can we bring to the table for people?
Yeah.
And then after I finished working on Titan Robotics, actually, while we were still working on Titan Robotics and preparing to ship it, we were negotiating. Kevin and I had been talking about it since he asked me to be his business partner a couple of years prior. We started talking to Paramount, Nickelodeon, and went through 9 months of negotiations to get a contract locked down with them. And so shortly after we delivered Titan Robotics, I think it was a week after we shipped it, a week after I had projected in the initial Kickstarter. So I was very proud of that. And then with the challenge that our shipping partner, we had to get a new shipping partner because they backed out of the initial deal they'd made with us.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And the printer that Kevin had been using, Monotony Gun, he'd been using them for over 40 years. They were by a conglomerate 2 weeks into printing. And so Kevin and I had to hand sort through 1,000 books, the hardcovers, to make sure that they weren't damaged before we sent them to backers, because some of them were damaged in the production process. And so it was crazy, but we were still able to deliver on time. And then we announced the TMNT campaign, and rest is history. That
right, $1 million later, and we'll cover that in our next video because
1.2 million.
1.2. Well, Sean, thank you for doing this. Like, I always enjoy hearing about you talk about riffs. And for those of you who don't know, and there's no reason that you would. Like, Sean and I had like a half-hour conversation before this video even started because we're both passionate about this stuff. And when we get together, we just start talking. So we'll be back in 2 weeks with a look at TMNT, like the Kickstarter, Sean's involvement, and we may have things to show off. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah.
That's right. All right, everybody, have a good one.
Peace.